What if I told you that a Grammy-winning artist, convicted and locked away in solitary confinement, was allegedly targeted for death, not by inmates, but by a system meant to contain him? What if the same man who once topped charts is now fighting, not just for his freedom, but for his life? After collapsing in his cell, rushed to the hospital, and returned without the life-saving surgery doctors said he needed. This isn't just a health scare. It's a potential cover-up, a conspiracy, and a legal firestorm that could change everything. R. Kelly is at the center of it all. And the question is no longer just about guilt or innocence. It's about survival. Trigger warning. This episode contains discussion of alleged medical neglect, prison abuse, and conspiracy-related violence. Some content may be disturbing to sensitive listeners. Please take care while listening, and remember, your mental health matters. Before we dive deep into this explosive episode, make sure you're subscribed to the Life Points with Ronda podcast on your favorite streaming platform. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to Life Points with Ronda for more thought-provoking content that unpacks the truth behind the headlines. Want even deeper, unfiltered commentary? Join the Life Points Lounge on Patreon for exclusive behind-the-scenes updates, bonus episodes, and real talk that goes beyond the mic. Hey family, welcome back to another powerful and necessary episode of Life Points with Ronda. Today's story isn't just shocking, it's disturbing. It forces us to confront something far deeper than celebrity scandal. We're looking at the intersection of power, punishment, and possibly even a plot to silence someone forever. R. Kelly, yes, the same man at the center of some of the most polarizing court battles of the last decade, was just rushed to the hospital from federal prison. The reports? He collapsed in solitary confinement, was diagnosed with dangerous blood clots in his lungs and legs, and was denied the surgery doctors say could save his life. Even more chilling? His lawyers claim it wasn't an accident. They say it was a setup. That a white supremacist inmate warned of a murder plot involving prison officials. Now, before you tune out because of your personal opinion of R. Kelly, this episode isn't about defending the man. It's about defending the truth, the facts, and the human right to medical care, even behind bars. Because if this can happen to him, imagine what happens to the countless incarcerated folks with no fame, no lawyer, and no voice. We're going to break down the full timeline, the legal response, the medical crisis, and the broader implications this situation raises. And yes, this one's going to rattle a few cages. So get comfortable. This is Life Points with Ronda. And today, we're pulling back the curtain on something much bigger than one man's fall from grace. Let's start with what we know, right from the beginning. It all started in the early hours between June 12th and 13th, 2025. R. Kelly, real name Robert Sylvester Kelly, is currently incarcerated at FCI Butner, a medium security federal correctional institution in North Carolina. According to sources from his legal team, he had been placed in solitary confinement, isolated in a small cell, and was under immense psychological and physical stress. Reportedly, Kelly had been administered anxiety and sleep medication by prison medical staff. But within hours, something went terribly wrong. According to his lawyers, Kelly began experiencing dizziness, blackouts, and a total loss of balance. He fainted, collapsed, hit the floor. His body lay still, unconscious, unattended, and unseen for a dangerous stretch of time in that solitary cell. When prison staff finally intervened, Kelly was unresponsive and barely coherent. He was rushed to Duke University Hospital, a leading medical center in the state, where scans revealed a medical emergency. Blood clots in both his legs and lungs. Blood clots in the lungs, also known as pulmonary embolisms, can be instantly fatal if not treated. Doctors reportedly informed prison authorities that R. Kelly needed to remain hospitalized for at least 2 weeks, undergo a critical surgery, and receive intensive blood thinner treatments to avoid further complications. But here's where things take a disturbing turn. Despite the doctor's warning, within just 48 hours, prison officials allegedly arrived at the hospital, disregarded the medical advice, and forcibly returned Kelly to FCI Butner, not to a hospital unit, not even to general population, but right back into solitary confinement. Let that sink in. A man with a documented history of health issues who just suffered what some are calling a near-death event was allegedly dragged from a hospital bed, denied surgery, and returned to a cell with limited medical monitoring. His legal team now claims that this wasn't just negligence. It was intentional. In the words of Kelly's attorney, this was not a simple mistake. This was an orchestrated effort to end my client's life. We believe this was a setup, possibly even a murder attempt, disguised as prison mismanagement. And suddenly, the conversation shifted from health crisis to conspiracy. Because the truth is, someone warned this might happen. Just days before R. Kelly collapsed, an alarming letter surfaced, sent from inside the same prison walls. The source? A fellow inmate by the name of Michael Glenn Stein, a man currently serving time for armed robbery and known affiliations with white supremacist gangs. But it wasn't the sender that caught headlines. It was the content. In his handwritten note, Stein made a chilling claim. There's a plan to kill R. Kelly in here. He alleged that a plot was being orchestrated by both inmates and corrupt prison staff, specifically targeting Kelly for elimination. The motive, according to Stein, silence, revenge, and power. He wrote that Kelly's celebrity status made him a liability, and that if something were to happen to him, it could easily be blamed on an accident or suicide. The timing of the letter, days before the collapse, was so specific that R. Kelly's legal team took it as a warning. Now, critics were quick to dismiss Stein's claims. After all, this is a man with a criminal background and extremist ties. But here's the problem. His warning came true. Almost too true. He wrote about a possible poisoning. Days later, Kelly collapsed. He said medical neglect would be part of the plot. Just 2 days after emergency hospitalization, Kelly was allegedly yanked from care and returned to confinement. Coincidence? Stein went further. He alleged that a high-ranking prison staffer had green-lit the plan and that Kelly's movement and medication were being carefully monitored and manipulated. The deeper claim that if Kelly spoke out, or if his legal team pushed for better treatment, they would make it look like he was hallucinating or trying to manipulate the system. discrediting him before the truth could even surface. And whether you believe the man or not, here's the uncomfortable truth. Something in that prison went terribly wrong. Something that now has medical, legal, and ethical consequences. R. Kelly's attorneys are taking this letter seriously. They've included it in an emergency motion to the courts, arguing that not only is Kelly's life in danger, but that the U.S. prison system has now crossed a line from punishment into cruel and unusual abuse. And they're not stopping there. They're also seeking home confinement or a complete transfer, citing failure to provide basic medical protections. But while Kelly's team is screaming conspiracy, the federal government is singing another tune. As the dust settled from the hospital emergency, R. Kelly's legal team launched an aggressive legal counterstrike. They filed a series of emergency motions in federal court demanding immediate intervention, not just for his medical care, but for his safety and constitutional rights. Their demands were bold: a full investigation into the events surrounding his collapse and forced removal from Duke University Hospital, a medical reevaluation by an independent third-party doctor, immediate release to home confinement due to life-threatening conditions, and perhaps most headline-grabbing of all, a formal petition for presidential clemency. Yes, you read that right. Kelly's team is now urging Donald J. Trump, the former president and possible 2024 Republican nominee, to issue a pardon or intervene through public influence. This plea isn't random. Trump has a history of controversial pardons, including political allies, former rappers, and even individuals convicted of serious offenses. The legal team believes if they can frame this situation not as a matter of guilt or innocence, but of government overreach, medical neglect, and potential abuse of power, they may gain support in conservative and libertarian circles. But while the defense moves swiftly, the federal government is pushing back just as hard. Prosecutors from the U.S. Attorney's Office have dismissed the claims outright, calling them a manipulative distraction by an individual who has consistently failed to take responsibility for his crimes. In their response to the motion, they stated, Mr. Kelly has a history of using illness, legal loopholes, and media spectacle to avoid the consequences of his actions. These current claims lack evidence and rely on hearsay from unreliable sources. The Bureau of Prisons has offered a more carefully worded reply, citing inmate privacy protections, but also emphasizing that appropriate medical care has been provided. But let's talk plainly. If the accusations are true, and if Kelly's medical condition was worsened or ignored as punishment, that's a constitutional crisis. If the accusations are false, it still speaks volumes about a system where so many believe it's plausible. And that in itself is a red flag about the American carceral state. Meanwhile, the claim Andy Angle is gaining traction in conservative media spaces. Influencers and commentators who traditionally wouldn't align with Kelly are now raising questions about how far the state should go in denying someone adequate medical care, even a convicted celebrity. Some have even begun asking, if this can happen to someone famous, what about the unknown prisoners with no voice at all? As this legal war escalates, the public narrative is shifting. This is no longer just about R. Kelly, the musician. This is now about prison conditions, institutional trust, and the lines we draw between justice and cruelty. And yet, even with all this drama playing out in court, The most dangerous battleground might still be inside that prison cell. As the legal teams argue and headlines flash, one truth remains constant. R. Kelly is still in solitary confinement, alone, watched, and allegedly weakened. And while the media zeroes in on the hospital rush and courtroom motions, what's being overlooked is perhaps the most critical part of this story: the ongoing psychological and physical toll of isolation behind bars. Let's be very clear. Solitary confinement is not just doing time. It is psychological warfare. It's 23 hours a day in a small, often windowless cell. No human contact, no meaningful conversation, no sunlight, no sense of time, no safety net. Even for the mentally resilient, it can break the spirit. For someone like R. Kelly, already facing years of legal pressure, public hatred, and the weight of a crumbling legacy, it can become a slow, invisible form of mental and emotional decay. And now he's dealing with something far worse: blood clots in his lungs and legs, one of the leading causes of sudden death in immobilized individuals. The treatment: constant monitoring, anticoagulant medication, movement, physical therapy. What does solitary confinement offer? A concrete bed, a locked door, and silence. In that silence, Kelly reportedly complained of ongoing dizziness, numbness in his limbs, and chest tightness. His attorneys claim he's received minimal follow-up care and that the medications he's been given are inconsistent. Worse, they claim staff members have become increasingly hostile, either taunting him or ignoring his symptoms completely. The public may feel conflicted. After all, R. Kelly is a convicted felon with multiple serious offenses. But we cannot afford to let justice become justified cruelty. Because once we decide that some people don't deserve basic medical care, we begin to erode the very foundation of what civil society is built on. Solitary confinement has long been criticized by international human rights organizations. The United Nations has declared extended isolation a form of psychological torture, particularly when used on individuals with existing health concerns. And if what Kelly's legal team alleges is true, his continued placement in that condition with untreated clots could be viewed as state-sanctioned neglect, or worse. There's also the racial dynamic at play. Black men are disproportionately placed in solitary confinement in U.S. prisons. The unspoken message? That their pain doesn't register, that their suffering isn't urgent, that they can be silenced in every sense of the word. So, we must ask, if this is happening to someone with high-profile attorneys and public attention, how many others are being silenced in the shadows? How many bodies are lying on cold cement floors, unseen, untreated, and unheard? Kelly's celebrity may keep this story in the news, but it also exposes the system in a way we can't ignore. Now, let's go deeper. Beyond the prison walls, beyond the legal filings, beyond even the drama of R. Kelly's fall from grace. What if the most sinister force at play here isn't the government? What if the real threat comes from the music industry itself? Let's not get it twisted. This industry has long been a playground for predators in suits. Record labels have historically profited from the pain, manipulation, and downfall of artists, especially Black artists. The moment a creator gains too much control over their catalog, their royalties, or their publishing rights, the machine starts to move differently. Suddenly, their career stalls. Suddenly, scandals resurface. Suddenly, they're erased from history while their masters are quietly transferred or monetized behind closed doors. And R. Kelly, like it or not, love him or hate him, he owns one of the most valuable R&B catalogs in music history. Decades of hits, billions in royalties, and musical influence that has been woven into everything from hip-hop to gospel. Now ask yourself, what happens to all of that if he dies behind bars? Who controls the estate? Who gets the payout? Who holds the strings? And that brings us to a name you probably didn't expect, Angie Stone. Angie, an iconic voice in her own right, recently raised her voice in a way few others have. She didn't excuse Kelly's actions, but she questioned the timing, the erasure, the way artists are discarded the moment they no longer serve the machine. She reminded us that this industry will bury you alive, then profit off your music for decades to come. Angie Stone spoke up, not just for R. Kelly, but for a long line of Black musicians who've been used, accused, and abused, then had their legacies bought and sold like property. She said, "What we have is a system that builds you up, breaks you down, and then eats off your bones. And we're supposed to be quiet while they do it." That's what makes this whole situation even more disturbing. Because while the public is locked into the drama of prison letters and medical emergencies, the bigger power players might be quietly orchestrating the final act. Is it really a rogue prison guard with a grudge? Or is it the same industry that's shown us, time and again, that dead artists are worth more than living ones? And if so, this isn't just about R. Kelly. It's about every Black artist who's ever signed a deal they didn't understand. It's about how legacies are hijacked, how catalogs are stolen, how genius is turned into product, and how the artist is disposed of once the product becomes more valuable than the person. So now we're left with the burning question, is this justice or is this a slow, institutional lynching? Because what's happening to R. Kelly isn't happening in a vacuum. It's happening in a system that has always had a pipeline from talent to tragedy, especially for Black men. A system where once you fall, you don't just get punished, you get erased. Not just from the charts, not just from award shows, but from the cultural memory itself. The public calls it justice, but when we really pay attention, it starts to feel like something else, something colder, something calculated, something designed not just to hold someone accountable, but to completely strip them of humanity, history, and even their intellectual property. And that's where we need to pause, because we are witnessing a pattern, not just with R. Kelly, but with so many who came before him. Michael, Whitney, Prince, DMX, and now the slow grind of R. Kelly's health, voice, and life behind steel bars, while his royalties are quietly reassigned, his catalog debated, and his public image obliterated. But let's take the emotions out of it for a second. Whether or not you believe R. Kelly deserves a second chance is not the point here. The point is, who benefits from his silence? Who benefits from his illness? Who benefits if he dies in that cell before ever getting another day in court or another breath in public? Because when an artist like him dies, the labels don't lose, the execs don't lose, the publishing companies, they win. They capitalize on the estate, the resurgence, the documentaries, the posthumous streaming spikes, and who decides how that story is told once he's gone. Not his family, not his fans, not his community. And that is the greater danger we need to talk about. We are living in a time where Black genius is devoured and Black legacy is rewritten by people who never created anything but profit margins. We are watching the systematic erasure of artists who shaped the soundtrack of our lives, not because we demand accountability, but because power demands ownership. It's a delicate conversation, but one that must be had. Can we hold people accountable without turning them into martyrs? Can we separate justice from exploitation? And are we strong enough to ask who's writing the final chapter while the artist is still alive to speak? Because here's the truth. This story is not just about R. Kelly. It's about us. About how easily we let systems devour our legends. How fast we forget. How quick we are to cancel the person while streaming their influence through a dozen other voices that the industry packages next. This story is a mirror. And while R. Kelly may be the name at the center of it, today, tomorrow, it might be someone else. Someone we love. Someone we believe in. Someone we aren't ready to lose. This episode wasn't about defending R. Kelly's past. It was about confronting the present system that holds the power to silence, erase, and profit in ways that go far beyond justice. We are at a dangerous crossroads, family, because when a man is lying in a cell, possibly dying from untreated medical conditions, after being rushed from a hospital against doctor's orders, when a federal inmate puts his own life at risk to warn the public of an alleged murder plot, and when we start to suspect that the real puppeteers might not be behind bars, but behind contracts, it forces us to step back and ask, what are we really witnessing here? Yes, accountability is necessary. Harm demands justice. Survivors deserve healing. But so does truth deserve light. And humanity deserves protection, even in the darkest places. Because if we let the system decide who is disposable and who deserves dignity, what's stopping them from choosing us? Next. We don't have to agree on the man to agree on the message that something here isn't right. That the music industry is not innocent. That the prison system is not sacred. And that as a people, we must be more than just consumers of scandal. We must be guardians of memory, defenders of legacy, and truth seekers, even when the truth is uncomfortable. Angie Stone said it best. They'll eat off your bones and call it business. Let's not let that happen again. Not to R. Kelly, not to the next artist, not to the next name they try to erase. Keep your eyes open, keep your heart clear, and keep asking the question, who profits when our legends fall? Thank you for being here. This is Life Points with Ronda. And today, we didn't just tell a story. We woke up to the one that's been unfolding right under our noses. Thank you for watching. If you found value in today's video, I invite you to take your journey even further with my podcast, Life Points with Ronda, where we dive deep into relationships, personal growth, and the wisdom that helps you thrive. Tune in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all major streaming platforms for powerful insights that can transform your life. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more uplifting content like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. Stay connected with me on Instagram, Facebook, and Patreon. Life Points with Ronda. Visit my website at lifepointswithronda.com for exclusive content, coaching, and more. Thank you for your support. Until next time, take care and stay phenomenal.